Captains of Industry, brought to you by Airtel.
We're coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria, speaking to one of Nigeria's young lions, the CEO of the Sahara Group, an energy services company capitalizing on what Nigeria is as the 8th largest producer of crude oil the world over. Nigeria has 2.9% of the world's oil. Some experts are concerned, though, that without further exploration, these reserves could dwindle because Nigeria is not tapping fully into its potential. There are a series of reforms underway which should try to revitalize the landscape, and so opportunities abound for change. Tonye Cole is with us here tonight, our captain of industry, talking to us about the way forward for the Sahara Group and for Nigeria indeed. Tonye, thanks so much for your time. I said earlier on, the Petroleum Industry Bill, deregulation, how's that going to change the landscape for you?
Well, it will change it absolutely. Again, if you go back to an earlier statement I'd made, we had to diversify as a need for survival. And we started diversifying ahead of the curve, so to speak, which has played well into what we can see today. So one of the places we went into, for example, was the upstream, which we started probably about 12 years ago. Into exploration, we've got assets on board and all. And that has now played out for us as being an indigenous upstream operator, well poised to take in and take advantage of the changes that would come with the Petroleum Industry Bill. Deregulation is something that is long overdue, long overdue. Most people would not agree from the street. You had mentioned something when we were talking off camera about it being a right of the people.
Yeah.
And so most people on the street will believe that petrol and cheap petrol is a right for the people. And I think the adverse effect of cheap petrol to the economy is way too strenuous on the people that it tends to protect. So I think that we're well poised for it and we will take advantage, but there's a huge change coming.
I mean, let's talk about that political fallout that may emerge, because obviously deregulation means liberalizing the sector, but it also means the government withdrawing subsidies that really sustain a lot of oil marketers and just keep the economy going. So the broader impact, because it changes the economics of the oil and gas industry.
Yes, it changes the economics clearly of the oil and gas industry, but one of the things that a lot of people fail to realize is that the oil and gas industry as an employer of labor, right, is one of the smallest employer of laborers, which means that by giving out free petrol, you're really not increasing the welfare of the people across board, sustenance, long-term sustainability, jobs that people can actually use to survive. We find that by staying so focused on oil and gas, we lose so many other things that the government can do. With a deregulated economy, first and foremost, one of the things that the government can then structure or restructure is the taxation laws that we have, which is something they started working on, which is a good thing. Diverting the funds that are saved from subsidies into other social projects is something that needs to be done, but that focus really has to go.
Obviously, the assets of some of the oil majors are now up for sale because of this impending legislation. But we're also hearing a lot of international companies saying they're reticent to further their investments in Africa because the climate's becoming a lot more uncertain.
Okay.
You look at Nigeria, sabotage of pipelines, conflict sporadically in the Niger Delta, those kinds of incumbent social and political risks that exist.
Okay. I think it goes back with legacy issues, and the legacy issues that led to the militancy and all of that was an exploitation of resources and exploitation of people. What needed to be done wasn't done. And so it built a lot of resentment and it built a lot of anger, not just to the government, against the oil companies, but also with the government of the day. Now that resentment is something that has to be addressed. It's been addressed somewhat, but I think there's still a long way to go. So when you have investors worried about coming into, say, the Niger Delta for investments on a long-term sustainable basis, they may have, I would have said 2 years ago, legitimate cause to be concerned. But there has been steps that have shown that changes are in place. First of all, from the oil companies who have determined that it's actually easier for them to work long term if they do the right thing. So a lot of them have started doing the right thing, which is good. Then government has also found out that they've lost so much money, right, fighting militancy and doing the wrong thing. So let's come to the table and now start trying to do the right thing. So that's been done. But we have to remember, and we must remember, that we're talking about over 50 years, right, of consistent exploitation in the negative way. And you're trying to change that in the last 3-4 years. So it's going to take some time. But have we hit the bottom and are slowly rising to the top? I firmly believe that we hit the bottom probably about 2.5-3 years ago. And so there's a slow change and a slow introduction of changes that will help improve the environment.
But that uneasiness is not just peculiar to Nigeria, it's pervasive in other countries. I know you've invested in countries like Cote d'Ivoire, and we all know what's happened there with the political impasse and how it's affected mainly the cocoa sector, but it does impact on investor sentiment. You're also in Ghana, and you went in there when people weren't even sure whether there was oil in the first place. You're in Angola, also emerging from decades of civil war, but a heavy bureaucratic, regulated environment where the national oil company is the major investor across all sectors of the economy. Those are areas you've got to work in.
Okay. Now you're touching an area that interests me even more than the business that I do today, and that's the area of change in Africa. Okay, it's an area that I see and I talk to a lot of people about, because we have to be prepared and seriously prepared for the change and the wind of change that is coming in. Africa is changing, and it's changing for the better. It's changing because older generations that have held on to power are finding out that they cannot do that anymore, because two things would happen. One is a kind of revolution that is happening in North Africa. The second is something they cannot avoid, which is old age and death. Okay, so they will die. Now, regardless of what they want to do, their time is coming to an end. It may be 1 year, it may be 4 years, but their time is coming to an end, which leaves a huge gap for us in Africa to determine what we want to do. Now, we can sit down, focus on business, forget all about politics, right, and think that we can make all the money. And guess what? There's no vacuum in life. So you're just going to be fed with another group of politicians that will cause problems for Africa. So what do? I think it's time for Africa across board to open their eyes and see that there is a huge opportunity for well-meaning Africans, who have a sense of the kind of global world that we're in, to now start taking an active role in politics, so that they can make Africa and take Africa to where it needs to be. And this would happen, but we have to be prepared.
Well, you're clearly an Africanist, a patriot, and passionate. What informs that?
I think also it has to do with my faith and my belief. I'm hugely optimistic. I believe in Africa. I believe in people. Because when I come across people and I talk to Africans, especially young Africans, they wow me. Sincerely speaking, they compete. I see them across in different countries, and they compete and they excel. And so I know it's an environment thing, it's a mind thing, because once you take them out and you put them in a slightly different environment, they excel and they do very well. So what we have to do is change the mindset and change the environment. And once we can do that, those two, then we know that the Africans that we meet will excel. So maybe I'm just optimistic.
You talk about your faith, and I know you're an ordained deacon. Some people would say that's a contradiction in terms.
Why?
God preaches modesty, humility, and your work preaches ambition, drive, aggression.
Good. If we can talk God a bit, right? I believe everything you've just said was created by God. He created ambition, He created aggression, He created drive, He created power. He created a hunger for all of these things. And He never said once that you should not do all those things, but He just said that you should be content and you should do it with modesty. Okay, now it's not a contradiction as far as I'm concerned. We have to excel. We're children of excellence. We're children of perfection, and so we must be perfect in what you do. Well, at least you must try to be perfect in all that you do. And so once you do something, and it says in anything you do, you must do it well. If you're going to put your hands onto something, then make sure you put your hands, you don't look back, you stay forward, you stay focused so that you can get to the goal. And it says you must always strive also, and all these quotes from the Bible in one form or another. But it says strive for the high mark. Okay, finish your calling, run your race well. A race is an aggressive thing. You don't run a race walking.
In running Sahara Group, and I know you run it in consensus and in conjunction with your partners, how much of that spirituality informs the day-to-day management?
I would say quite a bit. First of all, we have an interesting mix because on the one hand, I have a partner who is a Muslim, and I have a partner who is a Christian, but not a church-going Christian.
Too many of those.
And I have me, who is a church-going Christian. Now, I've found out that I've learned so much, even in my faith, right, from my partner who is Muslim, for example, right, in that when it comes to a heart of giving, when it comes to a heart of forgiveness, when it comes to a belief that whatsoever you do, right, you are doing it because God has predestined it, and that if it's meant to be, it will be. I've learned this from my Muslim partner. He believes it, he works on it, he focuses on it, and he does it. And that for me is something that resonates 100% with what we do.
Your love affair with motorbikes? A
Don't
deacon on a bike?
Don't tell my wife. Again, it's another part of life. I believe that life is about different things, and we're all different in a good way. Okay, some people are introverts, they're quiet, others are extroverts, some are a mix of both. But I think you must find what drives you. In many things, I do a lot of crazy things. Quiet on sometimes, or crazy on other times. But I find that whenever I ride, it expresses freedom, right, that I wouldn't find in a controlled environment. I'm not a group rider, for example, so I wouldn't ride in a gang of bikes. But I do it on my own.
And what does it teach you? What is that all about?
First, it teaches me that I can lose myself. Okay, when I'm on the bike also, it teaches me focus because I have to be focused. Single split second distraction and you're gone. I guess it just teaches you that you must be focused as to what you do, and you really, really have to pay attention with everything that you do to do it well.
Going forward, as you grow the Sahara Group, as you live your life by faith, through introspection on a bike, what will be the motto that informs your path?
I would say anything is possible. I've seen that we have achieved whatever we have put our minds to. We believe that we have not reached the pinnacle, and that there's still so much to do. And as long as there's a lot to do, it gives us a drive that there are new challenges across the horizon, and we will challenge. We will challenge.